Good morning. Welcome to the September J.C. Ralston Arboretum Plantsman's Walk. Um, Summer is long and hot and often dry here in the South, and so I'm always thankful for anything that's still going strong in late summer. And though technically fall does start in September, September is always full-fledged summer, and nowadays extending into early October. So we'll point out a few highlights in the garden. I'm standing right behind a very small growing Vitex. I love Vitex. It blooms a good part of the summer. Um, the blue-violet color is a color that's not that common in flowering shrubs during the summer months. It's a nice contrast to the colors and shapes of crepe myrtles. But Vitex eventually becomes a 15 or more tall tree. But this is one that is not even 4 feet tall. This is 4 feet tall. I have a tattoo right here that says 4 feet. It's 3.5 feet tall, and it's not been pruned at all to restrict its growth. It's one that the Arboretum's dear supporter, Bobby Wilder, found in his own garden as a seedling, and we probably need to work to make it available because it's nice to have a compact one for smaller gardens. I also like the fact that Vitex is highly favored by pollinators, especially the big solitary bees, the carpenter bees and stuff like that. It's a cloudy, damp morning. It was misting a little while ago, so the various pollinators aren't in full force at this time, but you'll just have to trust me on it. Immediately to my right, your left, is a Salvia. Now the genus Salvia is a huge genus from, mostly herbaceous perennials, some shrubs and trees, many winter hardy ones, some tropical, but this is Salvia pallida, pallida meaning pale, and it is one that is proven to be winter hardy. After 3 years, we have a bit more than we want, and so this winter will reduce it. It does spread. I do not consider its rate of spread to be aggressive, but you will, after a number of years, need to reduce it. But even on these early this morning, you can see many bumblebees visiting the flowers. And it's one of those plants that ends up bobbing up and down from all the bees visiting the flowers. It's been in bloom probably since June and will go up until frost. We occasionally make it available. We'll try to have it next year. And in the front, I'm going to right here we have a beautiful little allium, an ornamental onion, Allium Matusa. The alliums are also really good pollinator supporters, but this is also a beautiful little plant that you enjoy seeing. Also, it has fairly long stems, almost a foot long, so it'd also be a great little cut flower. There are a number of really good ornamental alliums that are bloom through the summer months. Millennium is a really good one, but it's having a spell right now where it's not blooming. It bloomed for months earlier. I think most people are familiar with the alliums that are a bulb, bought in the fall when you buy tulips and daffodils. And some of those are good for us. Most of the big ones are not, but these summer blooming alliums are not growing from a bulb. They just have a root system much like, other herbaceous perennials. But they just get better every year, quite drought tolerant, very satisfying. We are in the rose garden at the Arboretum, and nowadays there are so many super good shrub roses that are disease-free and bloom heavily. They continue to bloom through the summer months, but in the heat of the summer, the flowers don't last long. They sort of get steamed over the course of a hot day. But late summer and early fall is when they freshen up and they're real. It might be just as good a display in late summer, early fall. What is it?
There was a question how long the Medusa flowers.
Help me on that, Tim.
I'm gonna guess
6 weeks or so.
Probably a month and a half would be good. And also the foliage on it is really cool in the spring. It's twisted, hence the Medusa snakes. It looks like that. So it has an added interest beyond the flowers.
And they're well-behaved little plants. They're always tidy. I don't think even the neatest neatnik would ever object to their presence in their garden. I mentioned the other allium, Millennium. That blooms, has many flushes of blooms, so it blooms for a while and then puts up new flower stalks. But I was talking about the roses. This is the time of year when the roses freshen up and are really glorious up until a hard freeze. Yeah, I sort of lost my train of thought. But we'll move over here. The roses are quite as fresh looking this morning after 3.5 inches of hard rain, but this is one of our favorites. This red one here is the Grand Champion. You can see the little Vitex again, and an annual that is one of the feather celotias. That it's one of those annuals that I like to think of as a perennial annual, because they will be in the garden every year because they come back from seed. You could end up with more seedlings than you want, but they're super easy to pull out. And then you can just leave the few that you want here and there. The spikes of flowers are a really nice contrast to the shapes of the roses. And the pollinators also like those flowers. A great big yellow rose. This was bred by the same person who bred the knockout roses. And nowadays, plant breeders tend to give plants two names. One, a cultivar name, and it's usually a very user-unfriendly name. The true cultivar name of this yellow rose is Rad Sun. I know that the person who bred that, I don't remember his last name, but I know it started with R-A-D. And so all of his introductions are Rad this or Rad that. Tim has pulled the label, and you can, this is not the yellow rose, but another one, but it's a good example. The cultivar name is in single quotes, so you know that's the true cultivar name. And it's Bay Ipso. B-A-Y is noting that this was bred by Bailey Nursery. Bailey Nursery has bred so many superb disease-free shrub roses. And it's in their series they call Easy Elegance. So that is, but the trademark name is Calypso. And so you have a little bit of Calypso in this cultivar name, Bay Ipso, but it's a real mess. So technically, if we're talking about this cultivar, we should be talking about Bay Ipso, but most people are going to call it Easy Elegance Calypso. And this cultivar name is actually somewhat user-friendly. You often end up ones that are combinations of consonants and numerals, so there's no pronouncing them at all, except maybe digit number by number. But anyhow, this yellow rose is one, the cultivar name is Red Sun, but it's Carefree Sunshine. And this is a young plant. It gets twice the size, but has yellow flowers all summer. It didn't get introduced in the knockout series because it does not have the compact growth habit of a knockout rose. Take a spin over this one. dependable little shrub. I grew up with, my mother had a plant of this in her garden my whole childhood, and we always called it blue spirea. It's not in the genus Spirea, but you see it does resemble somewhat Spirea japonica, another really good summer blooming shrub. This is Caryopterus. Caryopterus Ensis. Thank you, Tim. And I didn't remember to check the cultivar name on this. Well, there's a number of blue ones like Longwood Blue and First Choice and stuff like that. But it blooms for a couple months in late summer into early fall. And again, you might notice a few bumblebees on it. It's deciduous, but I think it's rather attractive in the winter months as a leafless plant because the seed heads are attractive. It does need to be cut back by about a half in late winter because the upper part of the stems that bloomed are dead at that point. It's just the normal growth habit of the plant. A climbing rose we really like is another one with a cultivar name and a trademark name. The cultivar is, I'll just grab the sign and then you can see it. The cultivar is Os Canary, a cultivar name we can actually, speak. If you're paid any attention to roses at all, you're aware of the David Austin roses. Well, all of his introductions start with the first three letters of his name. But the trademark name of this one is Malvern Hills. We like it because it's in almost constant bloom through the summer months. It also has nice flexible stems, so it's easy to train up on the structure. And the stems are largely thornless, or I think maybe we could say they're thornless.
I found a few the other day.
Yeah, there are a few, but mostly thornless. Unlike its neighbor, New Dawn, which makes a glorious show, but it has really stiff, extremely thorny canes. When was it? 3-4 winters ago when we had a real cold spell, this rose got hurt, but in an average winter, it's fine for this climate. Excuse me. I think we'll move on. Let's go to the rain garden.
Okay. Does that rose have fragrance? Actually, I don't remember. It's not strong. If it has one, it's probably subtle.
I'm not really here to talk about the rain garden, but the rain garden did capture those 3.5 inches of rain. I've already gone down some. That's rain captured that is soaking into the groundwater rather than running off site, and it's also preventing the erosion of this gravel road here. But I'm here to talk about this Rudbeckia. This is Rudbeckia Sub Tomentosa, which is another native Rudbeckia, later blooming than the common Rudbeckia fulgida, most commonly known in the cultivar Goldsturm. Rudbeckia Sub Tomentosa normally gets about 5 feet tall. This is a compact selection John Ehlers, but there's another thing to point out about this. I think it's okay for me to cut one flower from the garden. This is not the typical flower of Rudbeckia Sub Tomentosa, which would have broad petals, but you see these petals are tubular, what are often called quilled, like the feathers quill. So it's a distinct form. being compact, it's doing a good job of standing up, and it's always nice when plants stand up on roots. I think we might move on. Yeah, we'll talk about a couple of hibiscus. The hibiscus is a big genus. I'm guessing that the largest number of species of hibiscus are tropical, but we have native herbaceous ones, and there's also a handful of woody ones that are winter hardy in zone 7. This is a species from Cuba. It's Hibiscus cubensis, and I know you're all tired of me always pointing out the derivation of plant names, but whenever you see that Ensis part of a name, it indicates that it's from somewhere. So if you saw Raleiensis, you would know that plant was from Raleigh, but this is from Cuba, so it's cubensis. Is that the photographer? And our moderator, Christopher Glenn, complained about getting stabbed by this plant, and I thought he couldn't possibly be getting stabbed by a hibiscus because I've never known another hibiscus with a prickly stem, but this does indeed have a prickly stem. In a cold winter, this plant dies, but it always replaces itself with seedlings. With these milder winters, the big plants are surviving and getting quite sizable. They must be about 9 feet tall. But it is a herbaceous perennial, so it dies to the ground over here. The leaves are fuzzy. They're nice and clean this year. No.
It doesn't get the sawfly, the hibiscus sawfly.
Okay. Yeah, if a real common problem with the common herbaceous perennial hibiscus is that this little creature skeletonizes the leaves, and though it looks like a caterpillar, it is not a caterpillar. It is the larva of a fly, more specifically a sawfly.
It's a wasp, actually.
Oh, it's Tim's telling me it's a wasp, but not a fly. But the point is, it's not a caterpillar. So if you're used to using dipel, the Bacillus thuringiensis that is used to kill caterpillars, it does not work on the sawfly larva. So you're going to have to resort to some other treatment, you know, like insecticidal soap or horticultural oil or a nuclear bomb. Anyhow, it's fun. It's so fresh looking.
Someone said that looks like Rosa Sharon. Hence our next plant.
Yeah. There's a reason why that hibiscus looks like Rosa Sharon, because they are both hibiscus. You know, I don't know the derivation of the word hibiscus. I'm going to have to look that up. But Rosa Sharon is a woody shrub. It blooms on new wood, so if you have to keep it compact, you can prune it back hard in late winter, early spring, and it's still going to bloom that summer. These flowers on this overcast morning haven't opened up all the way, but it's blooming its head off still on September 1st. Rosa Sharon is Hibiscus syriacus, and the reason why that word sounds like Syria is because the person who gave it that name thought hibiscus, the Rosa Sharon was from the Middle East, the area of Syria, but it is actually native to Asia. I know it's the national flower of Korea, so native to Asia and not the Middle East. Sometimes plant names are misleading. This one does not seem to be producing seed. There's a focus in Rosa Sharon breeding to breed sterile ones. The old-fashioned ones will produce an absolute carpet of seedlings underneath them. So these sterile ones are making this long blooming shrub into a lower maintenance one.
I need to correct Chris on this one. It's Syriacus, Chris, not Cenosyriacus. And what's the cultivar?
Yeah, this is, the cultivar is Gandini Santiago. The trademark name is Purple Pillar because the Gandini series are more tightly columnar forms. There's a white one. It's also Gandini something else, but I don't remember its name right now. But this is a fun one with the beautiful center to the flower. They always remind me of like having a butterfly in the center of the flower. So great, dependable shrub for many months of summer bloom. Cindy by herself?
Looks like it. Oh, I didn't look that one up for you.
Oh, that's fine. Crepe myrtles always amaze me that they bloom through the hottest, driest part of summer. This one, I can't give you its cultivar name because we forgot to look it up. It's something that arrived here as a trial plant from a plant breeder, and years after being planted, they decided it was worthy of introduction. So it does have a cultivar name. If you need it, just email me and we'll get that information to you. But crepe myrtles just go on for months and months, and maybe the main point I want to make about crepe myrtles is if you need a 60-foot tall tree, well then buy one that's going to get big. If you need a 20-foot tall tree, then buy one that only gets 20 feet tall. If you need one that only gets 2 feet tall, then buy one of those extreme dwarves. So do research before you select a crepe myrtle and find out how big it gets. And nowadays, plant breeders have bred so many plants like hydrangeas, and spireas, and so many other things, wigelias. So they come in all sorts of, their mature heights vary tremendously. So you can find the plant that's the right size for that location. So I'm going to go down to the pollinator garden. This last bed in the color trials is planted primarily for food for caterpillars, because butterflies need flowers for nectar, for food, but the caterpillars need foliage to eat. So most of the plants in this bed are supporting various caterpillars. Of course, one of our native butterflies of most concern is the monarch butterfly. And monarch butterflies, as I think everyone knows, only eat the foliage of milkweeds, the Asclepius. And this is this white-flowered Asclepius is one that occurs only in Arizona. Tim was able to acquire a bit of seed, and we grew it from seed, and we are just thrilled with its performance. It's Asclepius angustifolia, pleasant little plant, The bees and other pollinators are enjoying the flowers, and I think Tim just showed you a caterpillar on it.
Tempted to. It's not. I couldn't get it clear, but
I
yeah.
saw bigger ones over here. This is one of our East Coast, and I'm guessing maybe Midwest species of milkweed. This is the swamp milkweed, and it doesn't have to grow in a wet site, but will thrive in a wet site or in average soil. This is Asclepius Incarnata, and I've never done well with the few named cultivars of Asclepius Incarnata, Ice Ballet and Cinderella, but these are all seedlings. This one I've known to persist in gardens almost indefinitely. We've had it for sale, and we'll collect seed this fall and have a bunch more next year. Do you want me to hold this caterpillar? Here, it won't. Here is a monarch butterfly caterpillar. They are very similar in appearance to the caterpillar of the eastern black swallowtail, which is the one that, you know, like the movie title, if you plant parsley, they will come. But it doesn't have the yellow dots on each section, and it also has these two little tassels on each end of the body. This is a very shy one, but I'm going to put him back on the plant and he will carry on. But, you know, there's so much that the home gardener can do to, you know, make a positive impact on the creatures we share the planet with and improve the environment. And one thing is to plant things for caterpillars.
In the afternoon, there's all kinds of butterflies in here as well. And there's other critters in here. There's spiders in here. I captured a few that had captured butterflies. It's a whole little ecosystem.
Yeah. You want me to point out the Asclepius?
No, you mean the Aristolochi? Nah. See if I can get back into a... Oh, actually, let's see. Yeah, let's see if I can get that.
Tim?
They're a little more difficult. Yes.
We had a question for how long does Asclepia incarnata flower?
Months.
Yeah.
Many months.
Let's see here.
Tim is focusing on a caterpillar on another plant that has been very highly used by caterpillars. This is one of our native sennas. This is, and the sennas have been called cassias at time. This is Senna marilandica, noting that it occurs in Maryland, but it's widespread.
I actually collected the seed for this at Lake Crabtree.
And the butterflies that make use of this are the sulfur butterflies. There's several different species of sulfur butterflies, and they are very much a butterfly that you see in the fall, usually in, you know, I'll call them little flocks. It looks sort of like, you know, a Walt Disney animated movie where the clouds of butterflies and birds are flying around Cinderella or something like that. But the sulfur butterflies are very beautiful. We hope these plants will have time to grow much bigger before next summer feasting season.
They had flower buds on them last week. Now they're gone.
Yeah.
They got eaten.
Yeah, when you plant for the butterflies and for the caterpillars, you're not necessarily going to have beautiful plants in your garden. But if you want to see butterflies in your garden, somebody's got to feed them. I will point out this plant, it's one of my, it's a plant that I always want to have. I don't think any caterpillars make use of the foliage. It's a hybrid basil that is grown more as an ornamental than as a culinary plant, but it is just an amazing pollinator supporter. come out and, well, when we open back up, if you get a chance to see this plant on a sunny, warm day, it's just covered with honeybees and bumblebees and wasps and stuff. And it just blooms. It'll bloom year round if it's protected in the winter inside. It is a perennial, but it's a tender perennial, a frost tender perennial, meaning it's not winter hardy, but it's the easiest thing to root, and we just overwinter some in the heated greenhouse and plant it out each summer.
And the fragrance just being around it, you don't even need to bump it, is wonderful. It's African blue basil.
Yeah, I never did say that.
Ocimum African blue.
It's fairly widely available, and if you buy just one plant, you can quickly root a bunch more.
I'm gonna get it up here. Okay.
Late summer into early fall is a great time for many of the ginger lilies. The ginger lilies are Hibiscus. Oh Lord, Tim, I forgot this name already.
Cherry baby.
Yeah, this is Cherry Baby. Large flowers. What is also notable about this particular selection is it's only not, well, it's almost 4 feet tall. So many of the ginger lilies are tall, like this peachy colored one in the background. That's Thai Emperor. Most ginger lilies are more in the 5 to 6 foot tall or taller. And this is one, Moy Giant, that is a lovely yellowish flower. And if you've installed the fragrance app on your cell phone or on your computer, you'll be able to smell it. I'll hold it up to the camera so you can smell it. Most ginger lilies are wonderfully fragrant. They grow from a rhizome, just like the ginger you buy in the grocery store, and they are close relatives, but in different genera. The culinary ginger is Zingiber, which gives its name to the family, the Zingiberaceae. There's so many that are winter hardy. There are some gingers that are not, but the ones in the nursery trade are generally fully winter hardy. And late summer is also a great time for beautiful foliage. You know, the elephant ears, the various bananas, big ornamental grasses and such. I don't think there were other things we were going to point out in the monocoque garden.
Not offhand.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to?
Sure.
Tim?
Yes.
We had someone ask what the second Hibiscus was, and I missed it when I was...
Moy Giant.
Okay.
The yellow one that I cut was Moy Giant. The one in the ground was
Cherry Baby.
Cherry Baby. And the tall one in the background is Thai Prince. No,
Sure.
Thai Emperor. Yeah.
There's a whole Thai series.
Yeah. No, I'm jumping around, but then again, I always jump around because it's hard to walk by a plant of note without pointing it out. This is one of our native Oringiums. What's going on?
Chris, it's not Dr. Moy. That's a different Hibiscus. Moy Giant.
Dr. Moy is the one with the striped foliage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sort of butterscotch colored flowers. But we didn't see Dr. Moy today. Oringium is a large genus, occurs in Europe and North and South America. I don't know if it occurs in Asia. The common name sea holly is also often used for the Oringiums because the ones that occur in Northern Europe, in England and such, occur on sand dunes near the sea, and they have a holly-like leaf. So I don't know that sea holly is really appropriate to our native ones. They're sometimes called oringo. 2 feet away is another species of native Oringium. This is Oringium yuccifolium, because the foliage is somewhat like yucca.
What was that one?
I'll go back to it in a moment. But because I'm still talking about common names, Oringium yuccifolium has the common name rattlesnake master because it was thought to be an effective treatment for rattlesnake bites, but I wouldn't count on it. But coming back to this beauty, this is Oringium Aquaticum, and aquaticum referring to the fact that it often grows in aquatic sites. This is the very edge of a not very wet rain garden, where I would say the amount of moisture it gets is average. So it'll go either way. It's not one of those plants that has to grow in the wet site. But,
we also have it in the cascade in the water, and we also have it in our scree garden. Happy everywhere.
It blooms for months. It's another one that supports a lot of pollinators. And it's also, the Oringiums are a fun plant to ask students, well, what family do you think this is in? I know I was shocked when I first learned. The Oringiums are actually in the same family as parsley and fennel and dill, the umbel family. So there you go. Despite being in that family, I've never seen the eastern black swallowtail caterpillar eat its foliage. Have you, Tim?
No.
Okay. Well, we might go. Well, maybe we'll just take we get some fun. Can you let me out sometime soon? Not anytime soon. No, we're live. It'll
right.
be.
Is there anyone else who can let me out besides you? Jennifer Wong? Say good call you guys.
Well, she forgot that we had the Zoom meeting. Okay. I'm not going to focus on the conifers other than to say that conifers are great for year-round interest, and many of these are beautiful sculptures in the garden. They are really a standout in the winter garden, but they're pleasant year-round, and they add a lot of architecture to a garden that, fluffy herbaceous perennials often don't. So, you don't have to have a conifer garden, just select your favorites and integrate them in your plantings.
Tim and Doug,
Yes, sir.
we had a comment from Marilyn that she thinks Oringium is deer resistant. Any comment on that one? I think I agree.
Most of them maybe, but I mean,
I've had them in clients' gardens and the deer ate them. I'm not saying nobody is wrong or right when they say deer do or do not eat them.
oh, she was asking if they were resistant.
Oh,
so, okay.
I'm sorry, Chris. I thought you were telling me Marilyn said they are.
Or Marilyn was just specified.
Yeah.
She was rephrasing her question, which I read wrong. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. I haven't found them to be. But, I worked in one garden for 6 years. The daylilies never bloomed. One year they stopped eating the daylilies. The daylily bloomed, but that was the same year they ate all the hellebores and the crinums, so no telling. I do consider the ginger lilies and members of that family and cannas to be things that deer don't eat. Of course, you're going to tell me that 13 people in the audience just said they eat them in their garden, and that's just the way it goes.
Nope, no, Doug, just 11 people.
What was that?
I
said no, not 13 people, just 11.
Oh, just 11.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll see. I think that still validates my point. Um, I've always felt that whenever the gardens I'm responsible are having a downtime, it's a good time to visit other gardens and see what's still going strong. Late summer is a really good time to evaluate annuals and the things we grow as annuals to see which have made it through the summer and still look good. And there are many annuals that are spectacular up until a hard frost. And many of those are actually tender perennials, or expand the term into frost tender perennials, things that are truly perennial but are not winter hardy in a climate with killing frost. And things like coleus and sweet potatoes and so many of the other plants we grow as summer annuals are tropical plants. And I've long felt that the reason why they look good all through the summer, through the heat and humidity of summer, is that when it turns hot and sticky in May, they just say, oh, finally it's warm enough, it's finally humid enough, and so they thrive through the summer months. And true annuals, like zinnias, a true annual starts from seed, grows through that growing season, sets seeds, and dies because it has completed its life cycle. They're not dying because it's frost, they're dying because they have completed their life cycle. And so come late summer, having set a bunch of seed, the true annuals are slowing down because they don't need to do anything more. They've accomplished their goal in life, which was to produce seed. But the things we grow as annuals that are tropical perennials, they don't know anything about ending their life cycle because they've set seed. They're just going on and on as if summer's going to last forever. So some of our best annuals are tender perennials. Coleus, sweet potatoes. Elephant ears in a colder climate would be treated as annuals or dug and overwintered, but in zone 7, most of them are winter hardy. This is a fun one. Coffee cups. See, the leaves are like a great big bowl and there is water in them. Imagine that you could use this as a serving container. You had a tropical themed dinner or something. In the color trials this year, we have 3 different dwarf crepe myrtles. The reason why they're mixed up is because the box they were shipped in got all jumbled up and they were no longer in their plug trays when they came in. And so we didn't know what color they were going to be until they started blooming after planting. But there's 2 different white ones, a small pure white one, this one with the red flower buds, which is kind of fun. I guess there's 2 different red ones that are pinkish ones that are the same color. I'll have to go around to the other side of the bed to find their label.
Oh, Chris just mentioned we have the YouTube video that highlights these specific cultivars. So,
yeah, the little pure white one is French vanilla. The white one with the red buds is cotton candy, and then the pinkish ones, they might be red velvet, though I'm not sure of that. This is what I'm seeing. Those 2 look like they might be different cultivars.
yeah.
Why don't we go look at the Cannas? Do you want to point out this below?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll go to the oh, this one is different.
Yeah, like it's a seed strain, so you get variation.
I know you all voted on your favorite annuals in the color trial over recent weeks. This one only recently has really come into its own, and it's just spectacular. It's slightly rumpled because of the heavy rain, but it's just, you know, absolutely covered in flowers, real beautiful clear color. I cannot give you a cultivar name because it's a trial plant, and you know, that's all the information we have on it. I certainly think the breeders are going to decide that this is worthy of introduction. Also would be a great cut flower because the stems are good and long.
In comparison, this one right here was gorgeous earlier in the season. It's ugly as ever now. This one has come to its own, so this is a much better late season cultivar for us.
Oh, we were going to talk about the dahlias. Dahlias are definitely a superb plant for late summer, well into fall. They spit and sputter all summer, but then they really start blooming heavily about now up until frost. Most dahlias are winter hardy. Now I'll let you in on a little dirty secret. Plant breeders are breeding dahlias that don't make tubers. If they don't make tubers, then they don't overwinter. We had spare plants of these that we planted in another bed where we can leave them over winter. So we'll see whether or not they do. But the point is, if they're not putting energy into making tubers, then they're putting more energy into flowers. These are all in, well, most of these are in a series called, I'm going to struggle to say this, Delightful, you know, combine Dahlia and Delightful, and that's what the series is named. Beyond that, they're just, you know, colors. Like this is Delightful, Lovely Lavender, and Delightful, that label, Crushed Crimson, and Delightful, Sultry Scarlet. They're a little bit short for cut flowers, but this lavender one we could use for cut flowers. There's been a lot of really worthwhile breeding in the genus Dahlia. The one that I appreciate most is the ones that get 3-4 feet tall. They've bred them with nice strong stems so they actually stand up. The old-fashioned dahlias often had as much backbone as a tomato plant, meaning that if you didn't stake them, they were sprawling across the ground. So look for them. They're really great things. Do we want to point out the strawberries?
Sure.
3 different strawberries were in the color trials, and just in the last week or two, they have absolutely exploded with fruit. And earlier this morning, Tim and I ate a few of them, and they're entirely worth eating. They're at least as good as ones you'd get in the grocery store. Not maybe not as good as organically grown, plucked fresh from the field strawberry, but entirely worth eating. And they are 3 different color selections in the berried, as in berry, B-E-R-R-I-E-D, Treasures series. One with reddish flowers, one with pink flowers, and one with white flowers. They're also haven't shown much tendency to spread, so something you could have in the garden without them taking over the garden. Cannas are somewhat similar to the ginger lilies. They're distant relatives. They're in different families. Cannas are in their own family, Cannaceae. There's now quite a few with striped foliage. This is one introduced from Thailand called Red Tiger, the striped leaf and the red flowers. There's orange tiger and white tiger. Cannas used to be a better plant, but the Canna leaf roller has caught up with them, and they do things like this. And the name Canna leaf roller is a bit misleading, because though there are caterpillars that attack other plants and start with an open leaf and do roll them over so they can eat or pupate in the security of a folded over leaf. The Canna leaf roller, and you can see it on this one, actually take silk and prevent a leaf from unrolling. You can certainly see the silk there, and I don't know, you might be able to see a little silk at the edge of the leaf blade. And so I think more accurately, they should be called the Canna leaf unrolling preventing caterpillar, which is an awful lot to say. It's almost as bad as some of those unfriendly cultivar names. I worked with a gardener years ago who called them seal tights, which I think is a perfect name for them. But we can see if anybody's home. Most likely we will find the caterpillar. Yeah, they're nicely stitched along this edge. But you unroll it. And I see a lot of caterpillar poop. That's probably where the caterpillar is pupating, which is not the same thing as pooping. Right there? I'm not seeing it, but I don't have my glasses on.
They're almost clear,
Okay.
except for what they've been eating, and you can see inside them.
Oh, I see it there. Yeah, right there.
I think this is a type of skipper.
Yes, it is. It's the Brazilian skipper. It's a larger skipper that tends to eat the edge of the leaf while it's unrolled. Well, yeah, that kind of damage where they've eaten the edge of the leaf. And what are skippers? Skippers are a third group in that butterfly alliance. So butterflies, moths, and skippers. You've seen skippers in the garden because some of them are real common. They're often in little flocks. They're usually small. Most of them are small. Most of them are brownish, but very animated. And whereas butterflies fold up their wings, usually when they're at rest, and moths hold their wings down, over their back. Skippers are sort of slightly upright. They're like this, but then they're sort of slightly upright. But you'll see them in the garden. Now, cannas are producing new stems all summer long, and old stems that are finished blooming, you can cut to the ground, and if you go through them and cut the old stems that are unsightly, what remains of the mass of cannas will look that much better. See, like, here's a brand new stem coming up, and once an old stem is done blooming, it's just going to go downhill. Just like an annual grown from seed starts to die when it's accomplished its mission, the stems of a canna, now that they've bloomed and set seed, if they set seed, will start to deteriorate and go downhill because that individual stem has accomplished its role in life. What else?
Were you going to mention the life cycle of it's almost out of time, but the life cycle of the zinnia?
Oh, yeah. Maybe I often feel that everybody loves zinnias. They're fun, they're colorful, they're wonderful in, mixture. They're great cut flowers. These were started from seed March, maybe, super early. These zinnias are a true annual. They have bloomed and bloomed for months. They have set a lot of seed. This is too wet to really filter out the seed, but they've set a lot of seed. And the thing I want to say about these old-fashioned type zinnias, if you sow a new crop, probably July, August, they will quickly come into bloom and they will be fresh as can be and they will go up until frost. Whereas these ones are just going to get yuckier and yuckier, which is the scientific term for senescing. And if this is my own garden at that stage, I'd probably remove the plant from the garden. They have certainly earned their keep. For a few dollars, you can buy a package of zinnia seed and start a whole big patch of them. The various types that have Zinnia linearis are a bit better about continuing up until frost. But you can see some of them are starting to look a little tired. This is the Zahara series. Got it? Okay. And then there's also the Profusion series, which is single, whereas the Zaharas are double. Have we touched on anything else?
It's up to you. It's about 10 o'clock.
There are plenty of other things in the Arboretum, but we'd have to walk for 5 minutes to get to them. I don't know. Are there questions from the audience?
Let's see. Is Zinnia linearis the same? I think Angustifolia, and that would be the same.
Yeah, those two names, those are synonyms, and I can't swear which one is the currently accepted one. I think it varies by the hour of the day. And they both are referring to the narrow leaf. Linearis, meaning linear, and Angustifolia, there's folia meaning leaf, and Angustifolia means a narrow leaf. So they are synonymous.
Doug and Tim?
Yes.
Asked if there's better zinnias to sow in midsummer.
Probably, if the ones that are going to go downhill are going to be the like Doug said, the older cultivars that are grown more for their cutting. They're more elegant, Zinnia elegans selections, while these hybrids between the linearis and Angustifolia crossed with elegans, which is what you get in your profusions and Zaharas. They're called, I think, Marylandicas now. They'll go the whole season. It's those elegans that are ones that you want to plant multiple times. And they're the big ones, typically, the upright ones. They tend to get mildew.
Yeah, and
Marilyn just asked if any of them don't fade.
You mean the flower color fading?
Yeah, the flower color. I'm guessing that might mean just time to prune the flowers off because they've been pollinated and they're just kind of drying.
Yeah, it's like the profusions. Let's see if I can get this here. These look great, but if you look down inside, you have layers on layers that the profusions kind of cover themselves up. The older elegans types don't. They don't do as good a job of that. So you don't have to necessarily cut back the profusions and the Zaharas as much. But the elegans types you need to maintain them.
I would say the zinnias derived from Zinnia linearis are maintenance free over the course of the summer. Sometimes many plant breeders focus on making plants shorter the technical term is stumpification. And that's not necessarily good for the home gardener or the professional gardener. It's not necessarily good for garden display. It's certainly not good if you're wanting to grow things for cut flowers. It is of probably great advantage to the garden center, to the nursery grower who wants something that is short and compact in a little cell pack or a small pot. But in the garden, you want things to be taller and more graceful and have long stems for cutting. And one downside sometimes of making things really short is they no longer have the natural tendency to bloom. That flower goes by, they put up new shoots which will bloom, but they're long enough to hide that spent flower head. That certainly, right over here we have pentas, sort of a mid-sized pentas, but you can see large numbers of spent flower heads. These are not flower buds, these are where it bloomed already. And if it was a normal growing pentas that got 3 feet tall, it'd be tall enough to hide those spent flowers. So perhaps you prefer the compact ones, but sometimes there's a downside to being compact. Pentas doesn't need to be deadheaded in order to keep it blooming. It is a tropical plant that will bloom year-round in a frost-free climate. But here it doesn't survive the winter, so we treat it as an annual. And if you don't know pentas, it's a great plant for pollinators, especially butterflies. How are we doing for time?
5 after.
5 after, we ready to wrap it up then?
Are there any more questions, Chris?
Happy to answer questions.
No more questions in the chat. I've asked everyone or told everyone they can unmute themselves to ask any question that they want. Now's your chance, everyone. You got Doug and Tim.
I have a question on that Allium Medusa.
Yes.
Does that reseed nastily, or does it behave better like the Millennium?
I've had a few seedlings that this last year or so now, but it's not bad. I wouldn't put it there with Allium Tuberosum by any means.
Yeah, Allium Tuberosum is the plant known as garlic chives. It is a culinary herb. You can go in an Asian market and find, big packages of long leaves of Allium Tuberosum. It is blooming now in the worst, well, it was blooming during the worst of August, so welcome from that standpoint. It's pretty. Pollinators adore it. But the thing to do with that plant, if you don't want more than you already have, is just as soon as it's done blooming, either cut the seed heads off, or you could even cut the whole plant to the ground and just let it start all over, much like you do with daylilies when they're done blooming. So yes, we have had some seedlings from Medusa. I agree with Tim that it's not going to be an aggressive seeder, but again, if your preference is to prevent seeding, then just deadheaded once it's done blooming.
So I just wrote a little comment in the chat. In case you missed the chat, you can click on the 3 little dots in the chat window to save the chat. So if you want the botanical names, now's your chance to save them. Any more questions for Doug and Tim? We don't get them very often together to ask questions. Well,
Blue basil, where to get it? Is that what the African blue basil?
I suspect this time of year you might have trouble finding the African blue basil because it's really a summer plant, just like you might not find the culinary basils. Most any nursery selling herbs. If you're in the Raleigh area, you can certainly try the NC State Farmers Market. But in the spring, it's fairly widely available. And, we'd like to propagate it and make it available through our plant cart.
We had it.
What?
We had it earlier.
Yeah. But we wouldn't bother selling it this time of year, but we'll have it again next spring. The plant cart right now is out on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week from 8 to 4. And if you want to see what's on the plant cart, that's on the Arboretum website.
You got a favorite out there right now, Doug?
That would mean I'd have to remember what's out there. I haven't looked at it since 8 o'clock this morning.
I will share a link with the plant cart in the chat window. I just didn't know if you had to brag about one today.
What do we have out there?
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
There's Calicarpa Welch's Pink.
Yeah,
Yep.
a native beautyberry, which is a great plant for gardens.
You have a
Got
holly
rice
out there.
living, the
Oh,
Cephalotactus.
yeah, I do have something. I love deciduous hollies, and there are a number of native species of deciduous holly. Most people know the winterberry holly, which is Ilex verticillata, but one that's much more common locally in woodlands, especially floodplains, is Ilex Decidua. Its common name is possum holly, and it's a much larger growing plant than the winterberry holly. It's about the size of a dogwood tree, and the fruit is typically red to orange red, and the fruit will persist well into the winter or until the birds take it, and we're happy to feed our native birds. So I don't never begrudge them when they take them, but they're really beautiful in the fall and early winter months. And there are a lot of, what?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done.
If you like to plant things, fruiting plants for birds to eat, this is the point when I, for the most part, think it's really good to stick to native fruiting plants, because some of our worst invasive, exotic, woody plants are things that have fruit that the birds adore. So they eat the fruit, they fly away, they sow the seeds with a generous dose of fertilizer, and they come up. If you think of privet,
Ampelopsis.
Eleagnus, yeah, and Tim mentioned Ampelopsis, which is a plant we could point out. We have to walk 50 feet to show you a plant. We have native Ampelopsis, which is a name I imagine was created by Dr. Seuss. But the one that's a serious invasive exotic is one called porcelain vine. Why don't I talk and we walk that way if people want to hold on? The fruit are change color. They're cobalt blue and purple and white in various stages of ripening. So it's very tempting to grow it because the fruit display is so pretty, but it's one of those invasive exotics that just comes up everywhere. It certainly comes up in the Arboretum. It comes up in the neighboring horticulture field lab.
I got a kick out of it. Our former director, Bob Lyons, posted a picture of it. Actually, he was upset that it actually made it into his yard, and he says, I'm never going to get rid of it again. Oh, no. After you have it, so.
Well, this one.
Oh, yeah, there's right there.
Okay. It normally has a lot of fruit, but the birds are probably taking it. And you can see, Easter egg purple, sort of fairly blue, sort of a greeny blue. And every fruit will go through those color changes. Now, of course, like most fruit, they start off green. It's in the grape family. It blooms a lot. Pollinators love the flowers, just like they love the flowers of grapes and Virginia creeper. And so there are a lot of, positive attributes that would make you want to grow it, but don't grow it, eliminate it, and keep it from seeding around even further. It's an exotic vine, exotic meaning non-native, has nothing to do with exotic dancers or anything like that. Just means non-native, that just will take over our gardens and woodlands. Japanese honeysuckle also has a fruit that birds eat and spread, multiflora rose. you know, again, the point that if you're going to plant things with fruit for the birds to eat, it's safer to go with natives.
Unfortunately, Chris, we have it in the garden all over too.
Yeah.
Not just on the edges of the garden.
We were supposed to point that out.
Unfortunately, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
I did want to tell Doug that the correct answer to my question earlier of what his favorite is on the plant cart was I noticed that Dianthus Chris's pass along is on there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. Chris's pass along from the very Chris that we just heard
There you
speak.
go.
It's a probably has a lot of Sweet William in its background, Dianthus barbatus. And it is reliably perennial, has a long bloom period in sort of mid-spring, bright sort of red-violet flowers, a real wonderful, cheerful thing.
Yeah, Sweet William's a biennial, and I've had this one for well over 30 years, and it came from a neighbor in Texas who originally got it from her mother. So it is many decades old and has never reseeded.
It's double, isn't it, Chris?
Not
If
fully,
it is, it's only lightly double.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
I don't see any more questions in the chat. They're nice and quiet now. So thank you very much, Tim and Doug, and thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I hope we see you in Midweek with Mark tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Thank you, everybody.